So what I like to do each year is talk about where we are in the CTSI, in particular, what's happened in the past year. And I'll just start by saying we do a lot in the CTSI, I think, as many people know here, and I can only talk about very selected things. And just want to, for people to realize, even our folks, our staff and faculty and so forth, who contribute so importantly, if I don't mention you, it's because this particular year, I'm focusing on these things. So I want to give a brief overview of the CTSI and mention a couple of changes that we made in the Buffalo Translational Consortium. I'm going to talk about 6 different CTSI resources and support for researchers. I want to talk about investing in community partnerships and working toward reducing health disparities. And in the last couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about the vision of for the next 5 years and our goals and so forth. So, the CTSI. So I think of it as sort of 3 big things. CTSI is Clinical and Translational Science Institute. It includes the building that I'm in right now, the Clinical and Translational Research Center, a picture of it at the bottom. It's the top half of that building there. The support of the CTSA, the Clinical and Translational Science Award, and importantly, the institutional support. I mean, our success is the combination of the grant and the very strong institutional support. I think one of our strengths as a CTSA, when I think about, look at us compared to other countries, is how well integrated and how well the institution and the CTSI work together. That's how you make these things happen. And then the third is the Buffalo Translational Consortium, which is a partnership of 20 institutions that I'll show you in a minute. But what I want to first do is tell you the vision of our CTSI. This is what it's been from the beginning. And that's to perform research to improve the health of our community and reduce health disparities in our community and the nation. So everything we do is directly or indirectly connected with our community. And we have a high health disparities community, I think, as everyone here knows. This is the Buffalo Translational Consortium. Across the top in blue are the 5 health sciences schools. On the left in green are valuable, important clinical partners. Across the bottom in yellow are 5 important research institutes, all in fact based on the Buffalo and Niagara Medical Campus. And over on the right are 5 valued and important clinical partners. We have many more clinical partners than this, but these are the 5 that are part of the Buffalo Translational Consortium. This past year, we added GEM, Genome, Environment, and Microbiome Community of Excellence, led by Dr. Jennifer Surtees and Dr. Norma Nowak. We've been partnering with GEM. It's been a really nice partnership, and particularly related to community outreach and also hosting and co-hosting seminars and workshops and so forth. And so that's a great partnership. And then we added the Buffalo Center for Health Equity, which is a community-based organization. And that's really arose from the African American Health Equity Task Force. And I'm going to talk a fair bit about that a few minutes from now. So we were first funded in 2015, and that was $15 million total cost. And then it was renewed January 1st of 2020 for 5 years till the end of 2024 with 21.7 million total costs. And so we're in the 3rd month of our 3rd year, actually, of that 5-year grant. And our next proposal is due January 12th of 2024, but we're not counting days or anything yet. Actually, we are. So again, back to the outline, I want to talk about 6 resources. And the reason I want to do that is we've developed and grown all of them in the past year, and people don't know about them. And I want our researchers to know about these things, because this is one of the ways that I think we can raise the level of our research. And I'll go through each one of them briefly. So first is the Participate in Research portal. So I talked to a lot of people who asked me, where can I find all the trials that we have at UB? And up until February of 2019, when this was launched, we did not have that. And when I say people talk to me, I mean department chairs, researchers, and community members. Whenever I talk outside about the CTSI, that's one of the most common questions that I get. So we have that. And importantly, we have lay language summaries for each trial. That makes it more accessible to more people. And this portal, our audiences are potential research participants, our providers, who are the ones who can refer patients for clinical research, clinical trials, our clinical research teams, faculty, staff, trainees, and so forth, and national audience. I go to other CTSI sites all the time, and I kind of look at the research and the trials that they have and so forth. So people are looking at our website. So the way to access it is, this is our homepage of the CTSI. One click, participate in research, and you're at the portal. And you can see what you get are those boxes up top where the trials are in categories. That show more one over here. You click that, you get a bunch more categories. You can also use keywords and so forth. And you can see this is a screenshot from a couple of days ago. We have 329 actively recruiting clinical trials. So the next one will show you what I mean about lay language a little bit more. If you want to find out more about the study, each one of them has the contact person for that study with either an email or a phone call or whatever. So a participant in particular it's the coordinator generally. And you'll see the title for this: Investigational Drug in Chronic Heart Failure Patients. Well, we take liberties and put lay language titles as well. And if you click, what you get is at the bottom is the official title: a pivotal phase 3 randomized placebo-controlled clinical study to evaluate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That, to 99.9% of the population, is a foreign language. It is literally meaningless. And so that's the importance of these lay language summaries. And if you look around at other CTSA sites throughout the country, a lot of them have these portals, but only a few have the lay language summary. So that represents an important feature of this, and it's working. So we've had requests, we call them, over 4,000 since it was launched. And by requests, I don't mean views. I mean people have actually clicked on to find out more about the studies. You see what happened in the pandemic when we paused our trials, and now they're coming back. We're working hard as an institution to get back up and to go even higher. And then this is one of those bubble diagrams that shows the most popular ones. So small means one view or one request, and then the blue one on top about adults who drink alcohol, that's 207 requests. And you'll see the healthy volunteer ones are the ones that we get the most requests about. But this has been a very effective tool in terms of making people aware of the clinical trials that are going on here in Buffalo. And it is a labor-intensive job to do, to set it up and to maintain it. We have to continuously maintain it. It's linked with our Encore clinical trials management system. So the folks on top, the staff, Denise Swiatek and Ashley Regling, are writing the summaries, and then Joe Ventresca, our IT analyst, and Mo, our quality assurance specialist, are really kind of organize it, do the back end, make it go, and so forth. And then you see the leaders across the bottom who are overseeing this important resource. Next, I would like to talk to you about BIRD consultations. BIRD is Biostatistics, Epidemiology, and Research Design. And that is a consultative and collaborative resource for clinical and translational researchers. The best time to access these folks is when you're planning your study. Very often people don't go to too often people don't go to a biostatistician until they've collected all their data and found, wow, if I had set up my database differently, if I collected this 2 or 3 bits of data, I'd have be a lot better off. So it's early and often is how you should be asking for help from BIRD. It's led by Dr. Greg Wilding, and the other faculty. Dr. Filiacci along the bottom is from Roswell Park, and the others are from the School of Public Health, faculty in the School of Public Health and Health Sciences. And they're busy. Most of the time when you make a request, or often, a faculty member is a co-investigator on your grant. Study sections look for that. Most grants now have a biostatistician or have that sort of expertise literally with effort on the grant. And you can see that in 2021, there were 46 submitted grants, 9 of them funded, but a number of them are still under review and pending and so forth. And then Bird and Biostats faculty were co-authors on publications. When you make a request, Dr. Wilding looks at it, and they're the Bird faculty, but if there's a Biostats faculty member whose expertise aligns with your study, he'll connect you with that person. So these publications and grants are the Bird faculty particularly, but then also other faculty. We in the CTSI have a large pilot study program, as you know. I'm not going to talk about this year, but one of the things we do is when we invite people who've submitted a letter of intent to write and submit a full proposal, we invite them, or Bird invites them, to participate in research on a napkin. They meet with biostatisticians and others to look at the design of their study. Then these undergo peer review at Penn State, through our exchange of review. And if we look at how useful this is, so proposals that included a Bird team member were 2.3 times more likely to be chosen for funding. This is our 4-year experience with these 108 letters of intent. And that's not a big surprise. If you look at NIH reviews, they do better when you have that kind of expertise in the design of your grant. The other important thing that Bird does is these very valuable workshops working with the workforce development team of the CTSI. And you can see that in the spring of 2021, there was a so-called Bird Research Bootcamp. And then in, and this is doing funny things, sorry. There we go. And then follow that was a clinical trial series. And look at these topics. I mean, these are bread and butter key clinical trial topics. And you can see this year, or 2021, was offered SUNY-wide. These are remote. And there was an average of 98 attendees per workshop, which is pretty remarkable. It shows there is a big need in our community, both locally and SUNY-wide. And there's a lot of interest SUNY-wide. And that's gotten some attention too. And these are run by our workforce development team, led by Dr. Margarita Dubokovich and Associate Director Jessica Reynolds, and then our 3 staff, Hannah Norris and Marshall Brooks and Ashley, have continued to contribute to these workshops, and others as well, many others actually, with the Participate in Research portal too. CTSI staff that were with us previously. Research Roundtable. This one's new, brand new this year. We being the CTSI, have 3 newsletters. What's clear about a CTSI and what we do is our communication is not just to say, hey, aren't we doing wonderful things? Our success depends on our ability to communicate information and the availability of these resources. So we have Translational Spotlight that everyone here should get every 2 weeks with multiple audiences. We have Buffalo Research News that was launched in 2020, and that is specifically for community members, which has been very successful and popular. And the third, the one that we just launched now, is Research Roundtable, which is a part of Translational Spotlight. And it comes out when we have content, and approximately monthly is the way it's been. And this was actually in response to a need expressed by investigators, which was better communication about how things work in clinical research from the IRB, from the Clinical Research Office, from the CTSI. And so that is the very specific audience of this newsletter. And you can see the first 6 that we did basically once a month. IRBs, central study registration. Every study you need to register in our system. Clinicaltrials.gov, the clinical trials management system, Encore, and how things work. So these are 5 to 15 minute videos that are accessible from our homepage. They're in the newsletter, but then also with from our homepage right here under news. These are the titles of the research roundtables. And then actually that pull down menu, that's how you can find the whole article. So we have a repository of the articles. It's actually, you see it's on the VPR website, but it's linked to these research roundtables. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this now is for the clinical researchers and translational researchers that are here, let us know what things you want to learn about. So these are not videos, these are actually written newsletters. I'm coming up to the video one. And then this is, again, like our newsletters, run by our CTSI communications team, Christopher Schobert, our CTSI communications director, Joe Ventresca, our IT, and Aaron O'Byrne is a continuous contributor, led by Mary Sienkiewicz, our COO. And then for the research roundtable, we have Kim Brunton in the CRO and Zach Chaikin in the IRB, who are helping us and giving us content related to the things that we want to put in Research Roundtable. I'll mention recruitment to clinical trial, and I'm going to kind of abbreviate what I plan to say just to try and keep us on schedule here. People probably know 75% of clinical trials fail because they don't reach their recruitment goals. That's globally, 75%. So recruiting to clinical trials is a critical bottleneck for us to be able to raise the level of our clinical research. And so we have developed this toolkit, which has multiple valuable resources. Each one of these, this is on our homepage, right there. You can just click on recruitment. And each of these has a link to this resource. I'm not going to mention any of them. I was going to tell you about a couple of them, but these are very valuable. I'll just tell you about one, and that is the best way is ask for a recruitment consult. And the best time to do it is when you're planning your study. And then you can actually get it into your grant, make sure it's in your budget. The reviewers want to see this. If you have if you have recruitment in your grant, you got to have these kinds of things in there, and you can get that expert help. And this is the recruitment team, which is really the community engagement team, this integrating special populations team, and then we have a clinical recruitment coordinator, Ashley Regling. So Rosario Romero, Ashley Regling, Andy Strohmeyer, and Keenan Gibbons. And then down below are the leaders of these cores and supervisors of these folks. So this is a very valuable resource that I would encourage you to access. New education and training modules. One of the things that we kind of knew already, but we learned in the pandemic, we need more PIs at UB to do clinical trials. And, you know, there are good ways to do that. We have a good clinical educator. We have a lot of good clinical educators, and you know, perhaps a way to start it would be the PI of a multi-center clinical trial. And, you know, we can give a lot of help in that regard to do that. And that's what we did, in fact, during the pandemic. There were new PIs that stepped up actually and were PIs of the many multi-center trials we did related to COVID. So the way you reach these is on our homepage under education, scroll down to educational modules, and you get this. So these are training modules that are 5 to 15-minute videos. So in a way, these are parallel to the research roundtable, but some people do better with videos, some people do better with reading text and so forth. And you can see it's about the Click portal, which you have to learn how to navigate. It's about Encore, clinicaltrials.gov, all those key things that you need. And these are coming. This is a relatively new. This is also launched new this year. Again, if you have suggestions about the kinds of things you'd like to hear about, we would welcome those. And this is the team that's been developing these. Alexis O'Brien and Marshall Brooks are our clinical research facilitators who review, who are coordinators, were coordinators themselves, and review IRB protocols and are very familiar with that. Mo is our quality assurance specialist, and then Christopher and Sanjay fill out the team. And this is another potential valuable resource that I would encourage you to access. Finally, I'll just briefly mention REDCap. most people know what REDCap is. It's a secure platform for building and managing online databases and surveys. And one of the things, two things we've done, I say we, it's really with the institution, with Tom Wendt and the in the VPRED office. There is now strong support for REDCap. So you can email and get help with this. And if you need more support, there's a way to include it in your budget on a grant as well. The other thing that happened is it got moved into central IT. So it makes it more accessible, more secure, and easier to use as well. This is a very valuable resource. And I would encourage you, when you need help, ask for help, because there's a good group of people who can help you. This is on our homepage, also scroll all the way down to the bottom of the homepage, click on REDCap, and you can log in, you can get help, and you can log into, you can get training videos on the Vanderbilt site as well that are actually very useful. Let me now, so those are those 6 resources that, that keep them in mind. They'll help you. Now I'd like to talk about investing in community partnerships and working toward reducing health disparities, again, aligning with our vision. And I want to do that by telling you about the Igniting Hope Conference Series, which, as you'll hear, is more than a conference series. It's really a catalyst in many ways. So we, and I'll tell you who we are in a minute, have co-sponsored between the community and the university 4 of these conferences, starting in 2018. And we now have an R13 conference grant from NCATS, that's the CTSA site of institute of the CT of NIH for 20 and 21. It's supported by the R13. We got it for 1 more year, so we'll go in for a renewal. We work with the African American Health Equity Task Force, which is an influential community group that includes faith community, community leaders, nonprofits, and now a growing number of UB faculty. It was formed in 2014 and 2015, right around then, and our faculty, more and more faculty have been working more and more closely with them. From that task force was launched the Buffalo Center for Health Equity. That's a 501c community-based organization, and the Community Health Equity Research Institute. Both of those were launched in 2019, and we're really partners in terms of doing things together as a university community. As you'll see, in fact, we were all investigators on the R13 grant, 3 community investigators and 2 university co-investigators on that grant. And we have a manuscript under review. The revision has been invited, called A Community University Run Conference as a Catalyst for Addressing Health Disparities in an Urban Community. And that's what I want to do now, is spend a little time. I'll tell you about this year's conference in 2021, which focused on institutional and systemic racism in research and healthcare. But then talk to you about 2 things there we're just beginning to maybe make a difference in the community. So 2021 was a combined remote and in-person conference. And the in-person event was on a Friday evening called the Walk of Healing. And what this was a 2-mile walk through East Side neighborhoods, actually hosted by the African American Heritage Corridor. This is Michigan Avenue here. The program started here in that corridor, in that arch, and then went 2 miles and ended. And we had a program at the end of talks, and we had tables there. We actually had a COVID vaccine table there that ECMC staffed, and there was entertainment. 183 people participated in this. There are also golf carts for folks who could not make the walk, the 2-mile walk. It was amazing. Let's just put it that way. The feedback we got was really quite remarkable by everybody who commented on it. And then the second day was the academic conference, and it was done remotely. So we had Dr. Thomas LaViste, member of the National Academy of Medicine. He's actually, quote, visited Buffalo. He just recently visited Buffalo. And he talked about he's done really innovative work on racism in healthcare. And he talked about one reason, multiple reasons why health disparities exist. Heidi Gartland, who is a leader in Cleveland, and she talked about some of the really very innovative things that they're doing in Cleveland. And we actually created a partnership as a result of this. And there's a group of us going to Cleveland now that the pandemic is over to learn firsthand about how you do this, how you actually invest in the communities that needed to be invested in. And then Donald Grant, who's in Los Angeles, and he's an author, and he has his own company, a consulting company. He's consulted for the Los Angeles Dodgers and for big companies. He's also a graduate of City Honors High School, which I can see right from my window here. So he's a Buffalo native as well. We had a great visit. Actually, he comes and visits Buffalo. He's very involved in Buffalo, but he's based in LA. The talks were terrific. One of our goals with this conference is to make it a university community conference. So you look at the circle here, and on this side of the black line are the university attendees, and this side of the black line are community-based attendees. So we got about half and half, which is the way they've all been right from the beginning. You see the race and gender distribution, and 280 people attended. I should say that we've had approximately 300 people at each one of those 4 conferences. This is a Saturday. People are willing to devote a Saturday in the middle of summer to talking about health equity in our community. It's a great conference. It also has breakout groups, and these are important, these breakout groups in a lot of different ways. And you see what the discussion points are, what the topics are. We have expert facilitators in each one of them, mostly community leaders in those areas. And then we also have student co-facilitators, and the students that attended, that's really a cool thing to see with this conference too. Students from multiple schools, from the health sciences schools, School of Architecture, College of Arts and Sciences. And so we had facilitators, and what they did is took notes, and then they had the opportunity to report back to attendees in the plenary session. And so that really was a nice way to engage the students. Lots of good feedback about that. Also have them actively engaged so they're actually presenting to the group as well. So here's what I want to tell you about. I want to tell you about 2 of the early impacts that have resulted, from the conference, and really from that 4, 5, 6 years that we've been working together and planning these conferences. It takes 6 months to plan a conference, so we're talking to each other all the time and working together and so forth. So the fines and fees group talked about traffic ticketing that happens in African-American East Side neighborhoods here and basically in every neighborhood in the country, where people in low-income communities of color get more tickets. They get more of these traffic tickets, tinted windows and so forth. And these lead to license suspensions, driver's license suspensions for the people who can't afford to pay. So you have this cycle of debt and punishment in low-income communities. And so this working group, what they did from the conference is they decided we're going to host these community conversations about this. And it attracted a bunch of media attention, Buffalo News articles, Investigative Post articles, and so forth. And State Senator Tim Kennedy, who actually works with the task force very closely, gave one of the conferences, he gave a welcoming remark at and he co-sponsored a Senate bill. And what the Senate bill did is it limited the grounds for suspension of driver's license, provides additional notifications, because sometimes people didn't even know their licenses were getting suspended, and then requires income-based payment plans to be available for the fines. And this was passed by the legislature, signed by the governor, and in fact, since that time, the city of Buffalo changed its policies and practices, and there's been a noticeable reduction in traffic tickets and driver's license suspensions in East Side neighborhoods. So it's the kinds of things that you can be overwhelmed with trying to deal with all the social determinants of health and actually try and eliminating health disparities and so forth. But I think the way you do it is you keep doing it with these kinds of things, and we need to build and build and build on these kinds of things. The other was the catalytic impact of the Igniting Hope Conference in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic. On April 9th of 2020, there were 60 of deaths in Buffalo, 60% from COVID-19 were in African Americans. Buffalo is 37% African Americans. This happened all over the country, as we all know. The people of color had higher fatality rates, had more severe disease, and were more likely to get the disease because they're the frontline workers too. And with the underlying illnesses. So community leaders really led this effort, met with the Erie County leadership, and I credit them as well. And for the grant from Erie County Medical Center, then we all got together, university, community people, and brainstormed what needs to be done to try and mitigate this impact. And with the Visiting Nurse Association of Western New York, set up mobile testing sites in neighborhoods. 15 churches established call centers and reached out to residents, and they distributed food and personal protective equipment and transported people for testing in healthcare facilities and provided education. And 7 weeks later, on May 28th, looking at the fatalities, it was 45% of deaths from COVID in the city of Buffalo were in African Americans. And Buffalo, interestingly, is one of the few communities that was able to mitigate the impact of COVID reflected in mortality rates. And that has persisted throughout. And again, lots of effort by a lot of different people went into that. But this helped. This conference and our partnership really helped catalyze this excellent outcome. So I want to finish up with a 5-year vision. I'm going to tell you 3 big things, and all of them we're kind of starting on, but then also we have a ways to get there. So we have an amazing opportunity in our environment to integrate healthcare and research data overall. It'll have a transformational impact on healthcare and on research. So there was a lot of discussion and some momentum about implementing a single EHR among Kaleida, UBMD practice plans, and ECMC. That's lost its momentum a bit in the pandemic, but I'm going to be a continued voice because I think that will be transformational in our community. It will allow us a clinical data repository that will give us data in the entire region. Cerner has a tool called Healthy Intent that is a powerful research tool, and you know, Kaleida is working, and we're working with Kaleida really well as part of their Great Lakes Quality Institute, which is a quality institute based on, or that focuses on population health. So we need to leverage Healthy Intent. We want to integrate the EHR with our clinical trials management system. That's a very excellent recruiting tool for clinical trials. We can do alerts at the point of care to providers to alert them about all those trials I showed you in the Participate in Research portal. And then, you know, our informatics people and our big thinkers can develop tools are developing tools to integrate the diverse data sets that we have, including EHR data, genomic data, imaging data, and then key is social determinants of health data. That's really what we need to do, is link the social determinants of health data with EHR data. You know, our providers need to know if they're managing someone with diabetes, they know their hemoglobin A1C, but they don't know that this person lives in a place where there's no access to healthy food. There are no grocery stores. So all of that needs to be integrated somehow into one data set that is visible, and that we can help begin to mitigate these social determinants of health. Second, and this aligns with the university goal to move into the top 25 public research university, aligns to what Dr. Bashir talked about, and that is to expand and grow clinical and translational research and increase our clinical trials. We have a lot of opportunities in our environment to continue to streamline, you know, and there's more and more going on in an effort to do that. We need to increase and diversify our recruitment to clinical trials. 10% of clinical trials nationally have people of color, and that means nationally we are excluding many people from clinical trials. So our goal is to make our trials, participants in our trial, align with our community. We want to expand that recruitment resources kit that I told you about. Right now, there are focus groups happening in the School of Medicine, and those are going to go out into beyond into the health sciences schools as well, to look at where are the opportunities to improve our research. Those were initiated by Dr. Brashear. And then I think a big important part of that is bringing our basic scientists and clinical scientists together. I mean, that's where there are huge opportunities for us to grow our translational research. And Dr. Brashear gave a couple of real nice examples of that, actually. And then we'll engage more in the national consortia, like the Trial Innovation Network of the CTSI consortium and Trinetics, which allows us to become part of and lead multi-center clinical trials. And then we need to recruit and we need to train more clinical and translational researchers. And these three things I'm telling you about are not necessarily in rank order. They're three important things. And so the third is to strengthen and expand our community partnerships and collaborations to ensure our research benefits the community. I mean, Dr. Alberti's talk, that's what we're trying to do. You know, we're trying to initiate and implement and use those kinds of principles in all the research that we do. So, and again, as he pointed out really well, and I say all the time, you know, you can't get your grant and then go out to the community and say, hey, can you give me a hand? They need to be involved right in the beginning. We need to translate research results into sustainable community and system level changes that promote health equity. As I mentioned in the discussion with Dr. Alberti, that's actually a priority of the new CTSA RFA, that we need to pay attention to that. We can't just do the important clinical trials, which we have to do. Then we got to figure out how do we move our research into populations that will actually make a difference in health disparities and health equity. Our community engagement team will continue to host community engagement studios. That's getting community members. You want to do a study on diabetes, who's the best kind of people to tell you what's the best way to design your study and recruit people? It's going to be people with diabetes. And then we are giving and will continue to give community engagement seed grants. My last two stops, so these are the three big picture things that we are working on, and I think that really should be a priority for all of us. Integrating our data in our environment, expanding and growing clinical and translational research and clinical trials, and strengthening and expanding our community partnerships to make sure our research benefits the community. And my last two slides are to recognize the people that are really responsible for the things that I've told you about and many other things as well. We have this great steering committee. We meet every month and talk about things and brainstorm and so forth. And these are the core directors that are leading the various cores. And then we have our very talented and hardworking staff, many of whom I mentioned. And as I said, the ones I haven't mentioned, it doesn't mean that your work is not important and it's not working hard. It's just that I can't talk about everything in the limited time that I have here. So I am going to stop here. And all right, I'm 2 minutes. I saved us some time here, and I'll be happy to answer questions for 2 minutes.